Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston, joined as always by my co host, Jacob Boyers. Jake, I want to start off this conversation by saying you and I are not lawyers,
Even
and
a little bit.
we don't know anything about the system, what is going to happen going forward, and what has happened previously, because even previous rulings have been overturned, as in the case of Alex Safari. But as today stands, Mark Mitchell is a Kentucky Wildcat, and we are here to break it down. Jake, your initial reaction to seeing the saga of the trial that lasted, a little bit over a week and a half, and then obviously him doing it in the state of Kentucky, so you knew it was going to be a school or a university inside the state, and obviously we all thought it was going to be the Cats. But your initial thoughts on adding a player of all SEC caliber and Mark Mitchell to this roster?
Yeah, long as he stays eligible for Kentucky, I think it's as massive of a get as you can have. Especially, I think if he would have entered the portal and known he had a year of eligibility, he would have probably easily been a top 5 player in the class, possibly even number 1 or 2. Him and Momcilovic, I think. So to go out and get those two, I think you have. It's going to be hard to find a better 3-4 combo across the nation. I know, like, there's obviously some really good teams, and we got plenty of other questions I think we could talk about with this roster in general. But I think when you're talking about your two forward positions, you have two, superstars at the college level, and two guys that on any night can go give you 25, 30 plus, and win you games when maybe the rest of the team's not playing really well. And I think that's something that Mark Pope's been missing. I think we've talked about the lack of, a superstar, and you don't have a superstar as like a top 10 pick, like, some of the other Kentucky teams we've seen. But regardless, we watched Mark Mitchell give us 30 down in the SEC tournament last year. There's no reason I don't think he can't do that in other games this year. And, you can have those nights where maybe your guards aren't playing the best, but, Mark Mitchell or Milan can go out and kind of just will you to a win and make enough plays down the stretch. So I think it's huge. I think it elevates your floor, number one, and obviously elevates the ceiling as well.
Yeah, and let's just go off the numbers here real quick. 18.3 points per game last year with Missouri, 5.2 rebounds, shot nearly 40% from three, 38.8, and 55% from the floor. And Jake, you talked about winning a game for you down the stretch. We should know that firsthand. He did that in Rupp Arena against us last year and almost did it in the SEC tournament as well. That's his somebody added. And what I'm struggling to figure out here is, and this is what we'll get into a little bit just when we're talking about who would you have rather had. Obviously, Jackson Kohler picks BYU. Did they really go after him? Was that just a let's have this Zoom call just in case Mark Mitchell isn't eligible? We'll never know the true answer to that. I just want to know personally, where do you think the rebounding on this team is coming from? Because Mark is 6'9", but I don't think anybody would classify him as a, go get you some rebounds type of guy. And with Malachi not necessarily being that either, with Frank's injury history, I still think there is that need for a guy who can just pull down rebounds when you need them. Hopefully, it doesn't matter as much with the pace of play we're going to be playing, but that's just one concern that I think I have with this addition as opposed to getting a guy like Kohler.
Yeah. I think if you asked me before, like, who would I rather have, Mitchell or Kohler, I would still probably lean towards Mitchell just because, like, the rebounding, that's something we've talked about with this roster since day one, and I think it's going to be a struggle for them, and there's going to be games that they lose, and we're going to look at it and say they got out-rebounded and gave up a lot of second-chance points, and that's the reason we lost. But I think, again, you're going to score a lot and be able to score, and hopefully that doesn't impede you to a point where you have an extremely disappointing season. I am with you on, where does it come from? Does Malachi maybe take a step and become a better rebounder, but I just think they're going to have to win a lot of games by, scoring in the low 90s and getting it done that way. I think they're going to continue to struggle defensively. I don't think anybody on this team is some elite level defender. Maybe Malachi continues to become kind of a rim protector to at least give you a little bit of hope there. But yeah, they're going to have to score. But again, you just added another guy that averaged 18 and did it against really good competition in the SEC last year.
Yeah, and Jake, do you remember exactly what Mark Mitchell's stat line was from that SEC tournament game against the Cats?
I know it was 30, and it felt like it was every big shot down the stretch. Because
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, we were up 14 at one point or something, and then it felt like he just went on a ridiculous heater that I believe they even took the lead late. Right? It's been so long.
Yeah, they obviously took the loss, but 78-72, he had 32 points, knocked down 4 threes on
72.
13,
Yeah.
13 of 21. I mean, it was a ridiculous showing. And granted, I don't think we would say we had the best big man play last year, or a guy that could necessarily guard a stretch four like you would consider Mark Mitchell. But just adding that, I don't want to say elite level talent, 'cause I'm not sure that's the right, but just a seasoned college basketball player who's been there, played at the highest levels, obviously played at Duke, now 2 years at Missouri. Adding somebody that I think will perfectly fit in with what Pope was wanting to get at that four, like Usman Njai, a guy who I think you and I probably would have slotted in to play the four, or even Justin McBride. I think this is just a big upgrade in opposed to those two. And now you can kind of allow yourself for Usman to develop. You don't have to rely on these guys to take these next steps like Cam Williams or even Braden Hawthorne. I think just the addition by pushing a good amount of people down the depth chart one spot, resetting expectations with a lot of these guys, I think will truly help this team. And hopefully, like you mentioned, at the least it raises the floor and hopefully it raises the ceiling too.
Yeah, I think Usman's probably I don't want to say big loser in this, but like I kind of feel
I
like
think
because
it's McBride, honestly.
I
I think that's where, because I think
I
they'll
don't
still
know.
find
Yeah,
ways to get Usman, because of that length that he has, 6'11". When you're looking at Justin McBride, he's only 6'8". I mean, I think he probably looked at that news and he was probably hoping that maybe that he didn't get that temporary restraining order.
yeah. I don't know, man. We'll see. I mean, again, all of this is just kind of the secondhand things you hear out of practice. We obviously haven't seen them play as a team together yet. But kind of what you were hearing is McBride was actually kind of leading to start that four spot and winning the battle.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you look at McBride, it's kind of just probably a lesser version of Mark Mitchell. I think like they play very similar. They're similar builds. Even the 3-point threat. Uh, Probably neither one are great rebounders. I mean, uh, so I think they're very similar. So I think you'll be able to see McBride come in and play the exact role that Mark Mitchell's playing. Um, but you said not a superstar, and like again, I agree in the aspect of like this guy's not going to be some top 10 NBA player we're seeing, but I mean he's still got the potential to be first team All SEC, second team All SEC. I think it would not surprise me one bit if we're looking at him at the end of the year as the leading scorer on this team. And I think to add that person on August 22nd, whatever it was when he committed, like it's pretty crazy. You were talking about what was the week like kind of leading up to it. It's insane that we're at this point, and even with football, right? Like it's late August, and we're watching court rulings to see like if we're going to be able to add somebody
Yeah.
here 2 weeks before that season starts. So it's just a pretty wild time for college athletics. But I think this is probably like the last year we're going to have to deal with this, and then the 5-for-5 goes into effect. But I think it's as obviously big of a piece. I mean, just think about where we were with this roster, heading into, was it late May when Milan committed, or June even? I
It would have
don't
been
remember
June,
the
yeah.
exact timeline, but like to just think of how down we were on this team. And again, I'm I'm not going to sit here and say that we have developed a roster that's going to go cut down the nets, but I think when you look at where we were with possibly Malachi entering the draft, Milan, is he going to stay in the draft, or are we going to have a chance to go get him, or is he going to go to St. John's or Arizona? And it's like to essentially solidify your three best players heading into next year from June on is it's pretty remarkable to where this roster kind of finished out.
I mean, since that point in the offseason, you went out and you added the second ranked transfer portal edition in Milan Momcilovic and the sixth ranked transfer portal edition in Mark Mitchell. And this is honestly, like for basketball, I feel like it's a little more tamed because we still have a couple months until the season starts. We're talking about football. Alex Safari was just practicing, what, 5 days ago with the team. He was out at fan
guys
day
leaving
signing
the Browns,
autographs.
heading to Baton Rouge. You got
The Cats are looking at Seattle Seahawks running back who played at SMU last year. I mean, there's a chance that he commits to either us or Missouri. Speaking of, Kentucky Missouri connections, I mean, right there. I don't know how the football staff is doing this because I feel anxious for the basketball staff, like relying on getting a guy like Mark Mitchell this late in the process, and it seems a little anxiety inducing. And we still have 2 months. I can't imagine what Will Stein, after losing his GM and having to promote somebody else. But Jake, we're not here to talk football. You and I are going to talk football all next week. I love the addition. I still have some concerns, and I don't want to be the guy that pumps the brakes all that much just because what are we going to do, Jake? We're Kentucky fans at the end of the day.
not,
We're here. We're going to be positive. We're going to talk ourselves into it no matter what it is because we just bleed blue and white. But adding a guy like Mark Mitchell, who, I mean, just there's nobody you can step foot off of on this team 1 through 4 when you're rolling out that starting five. And just looking starting five, I mean, you're probably talking about what, a top 5 unit in basketball, as long as Pope doesn't go crazy with the substitution patterns again this year. And that's what I'm most excited for. And I think that'll be a good basis on whether or not we think Mark Pope can actually do this job. Because we've mentioned how after year one, like our biggest gripe was went to the bench too early, started getting some of those guys in, and then they would go on a run. Year two, it was like, hey, these guys need to play 40 minutes, and they kind of never really played 40 minutes. Now, he's been given all of the necessities to create a great team, and he's had some things fall into his lap. Like, let's take it how it is. He's got to do what he can once he gets there, but a lot of these he's fallen straight back into. Imagine this time last year, I would tell you, you get a 5th-year Mark Mitchell in August. You'd be like, what are you talking about? That's not how this works. But to add him here, I think at the end of this year, you will know whether or not Mark Pope is going to be the guy for the Wildcats going forward.
Absolutely. I mean, there's zero excuses now, right? Maybe this roster didn't come together the way he envisioned, right? I'm sure he would have liked to have pretty much had this team figured out by, early May, at the end of the season. But regardless, like, you now have a roster that I think on paper can easily be a top 10 roster in the country. And there are no more excuses. And, by adding Mark Mitchell, like, the thing that I think makes me the most excited is, like, now you're kind of saying, like, all right, if Cam Williams takes that step that I think we're all hoping that he takes, like, you maybe have one of the best 6 men in the country. And, that's not a spot, even a week ago that we were anticipating. We were saying, man, you need either Cam Williams or Braden Hawthorne to take a huge step and, hopefully be a starter. And probably you have to play Momcilovic at the 4 a lot. But now you just kind of, you mentioned slotting everybody down one spot. But I mean, there's a world where I do believe, because I've been extremely high on Cam Williams. I think I predicted before last year he'd be a first-round pick. You asked me for another hot take coming into this year, and I said he takes a big step and gets to be a first-round pick. So you're telling me now that he can come off the bench, kind of be, a spark plug. We saw him at times last year before hurting the foot. It wasn't just he was developing into that shooter. He was a guy that played at a lot of times with a ton of energy, and to have him be able to kind of come off the bench and provide a spark, and maybe there's a game where you do start a little slow and you can bring him in and he clicks, and I think it elevates everything, and especially again, we haven't seen these guys play. This is all just the reports you're hearing from people that are around the program, and it's Braden Hawthorne. Everybody was kind of saying pump the brakes on him. Well, now you don't need him to be one of your 8 best players this year. I think you have enough there outside of maybe big man depth. If Frank isn't healthy, I think you have the depth everywhere else to kind of let these guys, if they don't take that next step, you're kind of there.
Yeah, and I really like the roster construction to a point. Like I mentioned, I'd love that backup big who can just get rebounds. And hopefully Frank stays healthy all season and we don't have to worry about that. And it's just like he goes in for 10, 15 minutes a game and that's what he is. But just like looking at the roster, I think what they did a lot better job of this year was they got proven starters that can play at that position while also managing to get some quality backups, and then lottery tickets as well. Like you have all three of the things that you want to have the most. You mentioned a lottery ticket with Braden Hawthorne. Like we have zero clue on what Braden is going to look like this year. And a month and a half ago, you were banking on him being a key part of the team. And with all the reports that you mentioned that we've heard, everybody's like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! Let's lay off the
You're
gas
not
here."
hearing
With
the Jack Givens that you were hearing, last year about how good he looks in
yeah,
practice. It was a lot more of
yeah.
the opposite.
And then you have guys, Jerome Morton, you have Justin McBride, Frank, all guys that are going to be coming off the bench and hopefully for the entire season that have played just a ton of college basketball who they should be steady presences when they come in the game. Hopefully Jerome Morton's one of your better defenders. Same thing with Frank. Hopefully that is like your all right, we just scored 30 points in the first 10 minutes of this half. Now we need to stop them from scoring 30 real quick in the last 10. And those are some of the guys that you roll out there. So I like having those guys as just steadying presences and then having those full lottery tickets to where it's just, we don't need this guy to be terrific, but man, if he can be, he's there. Like Uzman, I mean, Mason Williams, like everything you've heard
A
so
lot of good
far
stuff there.
is that this guy's a pro. This guy, I mean, dude, he's what 6'4" and he's like 210. Like this guy's like a tank.
He's
Like he's already bigger than Mo. Like I don't even like where did this guy get this strength from? I think he's been in like the lab for quite a long time. And then I think Cam is already a steady presence. I don't even know if I can really consider him a lottery ticket. I think there's still a lot of upside that is untapped. But even if you just get the Cam Williams before the foot injury last year, and that is your 6 man off the bench, maybe even like down to like your eighth, depending on how McBride and Uzman play. I think that's a terrific role that he can really thrive in and really just come in and play a role that he should. I think last year we kind of asked him to do a lot more than maybe he should, and that was sometimes he's out there guarding twos all the way to guarding the fours, and he's spotting up from 35 feet sometimes. Like Jake, I don't know if you remember the shot in the SEC tournament where he just banked it off
oh,
the back rim and somehow it died right into the cup. I still don't know how that went in, but hopefully, I mean, the shooting on this team, we've got what, 4 guys that shot nearly 40% last year from three. And as long as you can get Zoom and Alex, I think to take that next step from three, they don't even have to be like great shooters, but if they can take that, even Lamont Butler's step to where it's just you have to honor it, I think this team, I want to say at right now, without seeing them play, ceiling is probably Elite Eight, but who knows? Like
yeah. I mean,
we sat here after the Purdue game last year, Jake, and I think we were both like 40-0. This team's up. This
how
team's
could you
awesome.
not? How could you not? Uh, now I'm with you. I mean, I do think like perfect world, everything goes right. I think this team can make a Final Four. Now, again, am I predicting that? No, but I think again back to like your floor being raised. Like I don't who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, and then maybe this is the conversation where we talk about Pope after the season. But like, I don't see them finishing, eighth, ninth, 10th in the SEC again, right? Like, I'm expecting this team to, you know, have a double bye. Like, this is a easily, I think, a top four team in the SEC this year. Um, obviously Florida's really good. I think Arkansas is going to be good, but they should be right there with those two teams. Um, so that your floor is elevated. You're mentioning the shooting again. You don't need Zoom or Wilkins to be terrific shooters, but enough to where their guys can't just sag off and they can get to the lane. And then you have Mark Mitchell and Momchilovich out there on the wing to, get a sliver of a window, and they're gonna, pull those shots. And then I think, there was times Malachi shot the ball pretty decent last year. I know he didn't take a ton of threes. Maybe that's the next elevation into his game, is becoming more of a, threat from behind the arc. We saw him shoot the mid range a lot and make it. I don't know his exact numbers from behind the arc last year, but he didn't shoot a ton. But I feel like he was able to knock them down when open. So I think 1 through 5, you can at least have the threat out there to shoot it. Unlike when you're playing Frank or something, and But I think with that starting 5, there's going to be a lot to open up there for guys like Zoom and Wilkins. I said that when we got Momchilovich, how important it was for those two guys in particular to be able to get to the lane and create. Well, now you got another top shooter in the country on the other side of them. So
Yeah, and I think just the variety in ways that you can score 1 through 5. Like Mark Mitchell scored a lot of us back to the basket against us. Like he's able to score from the post. You saw that in spots for Malachi Moreno. You're hoping that takes another step forward. And then I don't think people understand the ranges and ways that Milan can score. I think a lot of people just assume, all right, 6'8" white guy, he's like Sam Hauser, and they just assume that he's just like a spot up 3-point shooter, and that's all he does.
He can
This guy can score off the dribble, pump fake fadeaways like this. Any way that you can put the basketball in the cup, Milan can do it, and I'm super excited to see that. And that spacing that you mentioned for drivers and slashers like Zoom, as long as those two take care of the ball, I think this team 1 through 5 can be really good. Once you get outside of that, I don't know. You're talking about relying on a lot of injury luck, and Jake, that's something that we just.
At some point, it's got to turn for us, though, right? Like, is this the year?
I mean, you would hope so. I hope this is the year. I hope every year's the year that the injury luck turns for us, but it just really hasn't happened yet. But when we're looking at this schedule that the Cats have for, like, especially non-conference, there's no reason that you shouldn't roll into conference play with maybe 3 losses. I mean, you play Louisville, North Carolina, Virginia, Indiana, and Kansas.
I think anything more than 3 is a huge disappointment. Like 3, I'm not gonna I still wouldn't be very excited. To your point, there's really 5 games that you can lose. If you go and lose 4 of those 5s, I think we're going to be talking about major concerns with this team.
Well, the ceiling will be falling, just like it was going into SEC play this time last year when we only beat Indiana. And as I say, just Indiana's not good. They're not going to be good. Every year, there's some sort of, maybe this may be the year that Indiana's back. Yeah, Indiana's not back. No. Indiana's never back. I don't think they will.
They'll never be back. They're a football school now, man. They just need to embrace
it. That's even disgusting to think about. I don't need to get into Curse Netty talk here, but and this is like Kansas, obviously much in the news for taking Tyron Stokes from us, getting
that roster's weak.
Talon Kenny. It's not a good Kansas roster. Is Bill Self got like both feet in, or is he like, hey man, this is last year. I told this kid I was gonna coach him, so I stuck with it.
Kansas
is that going to implode on itself too? Like you have a huge personality in Tyron Stokes.
He could also go out and drop 30 on us and be the reason they beat us. So
If
100%.
you had to ask me what is he going to do in that game, I'm going to say at least 30. Because think about it, right? I mean, Cam is probably the only guy that might be able to guard him, and even that might not be the best matchup that I think you want. So, yeah, I mean, and Virginia's not a very good team this year. It's really Louisville's going to be good. We know that. North Carolina's not going to be very good. Like I would be at the point where like 2 losses, I'd be content with 2 losses in the non-conference.
Yep.
I think that's where I'd be like, I think that's what I would expect would be 2 losses in non-conference. If you walk out of there with only one, I think we're talking about, okay, this team's got something to it. Anything more than that, and you're might be sounding the alarm bells.
Yeah, I think 3-2 is not just obtainable. I think it's what you need to do. Again, if they go 2-3, I'm not going to say that the sky's falling and like cancel the season and this team's going to be another first round exit or something. But I would not be very excited. Like obviously going to Virginia, that's in my head. Like that's one I'm going to think they probably lose just because. I mean, we know how college basketball goes, and we saw it a couple of years ago at Clemson. But I think that Clemson team's probably better than this Virginia team you're about to play. I mean, they're going to be better than they were last year, but we'll see. But I'm with you. Like, you get Kansas on a neutral floor. You get, North Carolina, you mentioned it. They're not very good. Louisville's going to be good. So with those other ones, you got to find a way to go 3-4 at the bare minimum.
Yeah, and the only one of those games that are true road games is that Virginia game. Louisville you get at home. North Carolina's in Madison Square Garden. Indiana's at Lucas Oil Stadium, which that might be worse for us. I'm not sure. We got some bad memories down in Indianapolis. And then the Kansas game is in Chicago. So you really only have one true road test before you go into SEC play. It's got to be 2 losses or fewer.
Yep,
I mean, we'll revisit this, Jake. Remember this at the end of the non-conference schedule to look at this. And if we got more than 2 losses, we'll be like, hey, we told you here first. It's not going to be a great season. If we have less than that, we're going to be like, hey, season's on. Let's go. And Jake, who even knows if Mark Mitchell is going to be a Kentucky Wildcat playing at that time?
That's the other thing. We could be doing this whole episode and talking about how much it evaluates the team, and then I don't know. I mean, I'm to the point where I would be surprised if he's not, based on everything. Not to bring it back to football, I'd be surprised if, I know that it wasn't declined or they lost the court case. It's just on hold right now for the Colorado one. I would be pretty surprised if week 1 Alex Safari's not suiting up. Like, it goes to a bigger point of like, I have no idea what the NCAA is doing. Like, everybody since COVID has gotten to play 5-6 years. Everybody starting next year gets to play 5 years. Like, I don't understand this. We're going to go down swinging and fight this, but I something tells me all these guys are going to be ruled eligible, especially the ones that haven't gone and played in the pros. So, maybe they do something with some of those guys, but I would be shocked if Mitchell's not. But who knows? Again, you started by saying we're not lawyers, and I'm not, and who knows what goes on in the brain of the NCAA and how bad they really want to, fight this and go on for. But so yeah, who knows? Maybe in a week or two we're back on here and we're talking about this roster as it was constructed before Sunday or whatever day he committed.
And then it's like, all right, where do we find this 15th guy? Is it Ryan Hampton reclassifying? Is there a foreign guy out there that we can go get? We have no idea. Meanwhile, all this is being said, and Frank Kepnang, whose career started in 2020, is still eligible.
Exactly. I mean,
what is the NCAA doing? I don't understand.
Just
like Antonio O'Barry just got pulled from Kentucky's roster and ruled ineligible, and he started in 2021. I don't know. Like, I'm not a lawyer for this reason because I don't understand any of this, and I never will. But it makes no sense to me. Well, one last thing I just wanted to hit on with Mark Mitchell. The Evan Meyer rankings. Jake, I told you about this, and I was going to use the Evan Meyer rankings as my Bible for this basketball season after how well it's worked for Michigan Duke and other teams that have been using it so close to the vest. 88th best player in the country last year. Top 50 offensive player. Defense is where it kind of draws down a little bit. But adding that at this point in the season, now with Zoom, Malachi, Mark, those guys have all been inside the top 100 on returning players last year. Alex is a little outside of there. I don't know how they do with adding Furman stuff in there. Who knows? But Maya rankings-wise, we're looking good. And that's what I'm going to use as my Bible for this year.
Well, it's got to be true, you guys. You heard it here first. And Cam Johnston, who everybody knows is a little bit of a Debbie Downer when it comes to Kentucky basketball. I think everybody would be willing to acknowledge he never has a good outlook on these teams. So he gave two, I don't know what you call this motion here.
Three goggles. Give me the Ron Lamb. It's been a long time since you've had to use one of those, huh?
Like a chef's kiss, I guess, maybe is what you were going for there. So
maybe, I don't know.
But Mr. Debbie Downer himself has got us ready to go.
I'll tell you what, this has got me ready to go, adding a elite level talent like Mark Mitchell, being like 11 days from kickoff, has got me juiced up, ready to go.
We get some college football. We get some college football in just a few days, man. I mean, I know it's not us, but we will turn the TV on Saturday and watch college football.
Yep, it is a great time of the year, and getting all this basketball news just makes us even more ready for football season to start, so that way we can get the basketball season, and we'll obviously have you covered each and every step of the way here at the Cats Talk podcast. Hopefully we don't have to scrap this episode in like 2 days because Mark Mitchell was ruled ineligible. Hopefully he is good to go.
Good news
for
only,
the foreseeable future. Yeah. As Gino Suarez once said, good vibes only, Jim Day. And that's all we got to roll with here. But make sure you keep in touch with the Cats Talk podcast. We'll have you covered every step of the way. Kentucky football, Kentucky basketball, women's basketball. We are going to have it all. Jake, maybe even a little bit of baseball content if we can get there.
Man, you're a busy man.
Busy man. There's always something going on. Yeah, maybe we won't get to baseball now that you mentioned it, but we'll try our best to make sure you guys are all caught up with all UK athletics. But make sure to subscribe anywhere and everywhere you get your podcast. Until next time, go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.